Hey, Peter.
Hey, what's up?
Today, we are listening to perhaps the greatest jazz album of the 1990s. Now, I want to see if you can guess what it is. So, it's by an artist who plays the saxophone. Okay. Their first name is Kenny.
Okay, I got you.
You probably already have it.
Yeah.
Their last initial is G.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
The first word of the album is song. Do you think you know it?
Yep, I've got it. I got you. Here it is. What? Oh.
What happened to you, man? I'm Adam Menace.
And I'm Peter Barton.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Jazz Explored.
Explored. Peter, explore me this. What's going on over there?
I mean, it was a little bit of a gag.
You
right?
picked Songbird over Songbook?
You said Kenny G.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kenny Garrett, who we are going to be listening today, is known colloquially as the real Kenny G, which is kind of a funny thing. Actually, big love to the other Kenny G from Songbird fame as well.
Hey,
you know,
my parents cranked Songbird like on our back patio. Oh yeah, summer days like today.
Come on,
little country
80s.
Time iced tea, little Kenny G Songbird,
which also had quite a bit of saccharin in it as well.
That's living, my man. Today we are listening to Kenny Garrett's song.
Not healthy, but it feels good.
We're listening to Kenny Garrett's Songbook. I say it's definitely a contender for one of the great jazz albums of the 1990s. There's a few that we could put in there. Certainly, you can include some of Joshua Redman's mid-90s run. You can include some of the Brad Mehldau trio, like, Art of the Trio in that conversation. There's some Christian McBride albums. I would say there's even some Benny Green albums.
Blue Note Trio albums.
In the run. There's, of course, the Joe Henderson early 90s things that are in the run, but none of them, I think, are, I don't know if any are as impactful as Songbook. Honestly, these are a collection of modern jazz standards.
Yeah.
I played all of them on gigs before, like multiple times.
Nice.
And they're so much fun to play, and we can talk about what makes them so much fun to play.
Yeah. Could you pull them out, except for maybe one or two that's like on a jam session? That would be tougher.
It'd be tougher.
They should be. You should be able to.
Yeah, but you could pull out, like, Sing a Song of Song. You could pull out, everybody's going to screw up the bridge, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But just
Is it though?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it only happens like one time. They go back to a Kenny G solo after the.
Is this album kind of a slow? We're going to get into this, but has it been a slow burn though in terms of becoming a classic?
I think it has become more of a classic than it probably was recognized in 1997, and I think it's for good reason because the players on it are fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. The playing is amazing. I think it's probably, we can get into this, but it's probably Kenny Garrett's strongest compositional album.
Right.
I think this album really hit a sweet spot with like singable melodies, but burning solos. We'll talk about that too, about how the hell do you do that? It's the most challenging thing to have these beautiful songs, beautiful compositions that give the improviser a lot of meat on the bone to like come up with. And then you have this collection of the finest improvisers in the world on it. Yeah. Kenny Kirkland, Jeff Tain Watts, Nat Reeves. Like, it's just incredible. So we'll get into all of that. But let's give a little cultural context, Peter, to start it off.
Please.
So this was released in May of 1997, by the way. That was also when I was supposed to graduate high school, and I didn't because I was playing music all the time. We got it back, though.
You didn't graduate high school?
We got it back. I got my good enough diploma eventually and went to the university, but we got it.
GED in the house.
I loved playing music so much more than high school that one time I just stopped the high school.
Dude, I love music more than high school too.
You left high school as well.
That's true.
You went right to Juilliard.
I had a diploma though, my friend.
I did not. I eventually got it together.
It's all good.
But okay, so that's a little personal cultural context. Is I was very worried about my future. But the number one movie in the world was The Lost World. Jurassic Park's The Lost World.
Oh, that was a good one.
The sequel to Jurassic Park. The number one show was Seinfeld. Number one TV show.
Why are you a little
Seinfeld?
You don't seem convinced.
It was surprising. I thought it was going to be ER or a big drama like that, but it was Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The number one song, and again, this was like...
What? Are we back in 97? What?
Come on. Sicker than your ass.
I'm telling you what, you haven't lived until you've danced in a basement in Fenton to this song.
This was a big hit.
This was a
Shout
huge
out
hit.
Notorious B.I.G.
The president was William.
That was the biggest hit of the year? I know that was like the summer.
It had to be one of them.
Yeah.
Man,
nice.
Hypnotized from Biggie. The president of the United States was William Jefferson Clinton.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Woodrow Wilson. I was like, it wasn't that long ago.
No, not quite that long ago.
Bill Clinton.
Some other cultural happenings. Tony Blair was elected for the first time as Prime Minister of Great Britain. The IBM computer Deep Blue beat Kasparov in a game of chess, the first time that a computer beat a human at chess.
But Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet. How was that possible? Oh, it was not hooked up to the network.
Yeah, maybe not. I shouldn't say beat a human, but beat probably the best chess player in the world at that time.
Which has led up to today where AI is going to take over and beat all of us.
So. Oh, yeah. AI is going to be able to do this podcast so much better than we can do.
I am AI. You are, yeah.
Why do you, see, it's not going to be that. It's going to be like super charming and way better looking than both of us. Anyway,
not possible.
That day's coming. And also, Borussia Dortmund won the Champions League, and that's
Dortmund.
Borussia
Dortmund
won the Champions League. Yeah. What about some artist background on Kenny G?
Kenny Garrett and Jeff Tane Watts, the drummer and of course saxophone on this amazing album, were both age 36 at this time.
Killing.
And that's like, it's such a crazy thing to think about that because I've known Kenny Garrett a long time, and Jeff, I knew all of these musicians and know all of them. All of them are thankfully still with us, except for Kenny Kirkland, unfortunately. But I remember I heard this band that year in '97. There's a great video that you can catch on YouTube. We'll link to it below, of them playing at the Montreaux Jazz Festival from the summer of when did this come out? It came out in May,
yeah.
Right? So this, like from that summer, right after it, playing all the same music, incredibly. I was at that concert.
No way.
Yes, I was absolutely there. In fact, I even remember I called and left a voice message on the phone of Kenny Garrett in his room right after the gig.
At the hotel?
At the hotel, back when you could leave messages.
So little Peter Martin was like, man, that was so killing.
Dude, I was like, 25 years old. I wasn't 26 years old. I was,
okay,
man.
Okay.
No, I did. I was just like, dude, that was amazing. Thank you, is what I was saying. And if Kenny Kirkland you need a sub, give me a call too. No, I didn't say that. Yeah. No, but I
should have. We'll talk about that. Maybe
I got to
dream subs.
Yeah, I got to feel this band and hear it. But thinking back on it now, I'm like, this is crazy that they were so young.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously older than me, so they felt like seasoned veterans. So Kenny Garrett and Tane were both 36. Nat Reeves and Kenny Kirkland were both 41.
Nice.
So just a little bit older. And then, of course, tragically, Kenny Kirkland died the next year in 1998.
Was this his probably last big time album that he was a part of before
Kenny Kirkland? Yes. He was on something else after this. I'm not sure what it was. It wasn't his last album recording.
Yeah.
But it was really, and they toured a lot with this band right at the end. And it was just a tragic thing, obviously the musical loss of Kenny Kirkland for the whole music community beyond just jazz and everything.
41, man.
Yeah.
Devastating.
It's crazy. But this was released in May of 1997, recorded in January. Back at a time when recordings were released a little bit closer to when they were recorded, which was cool. This was a 2-day session, which we're going to talk about this a little bit later, possibly in Apex Mountain or underrated in our bespoke little divisions. That might be the sweet spot. It was recorded at Sear Sound, which we were just at recently for the Ron Carter session that we did.
Yeah.
Legendary studio, fantastic studio in Midtown Manhattan. Of course, on the Warner Brothers label. This was sort of this was getting towards the end of the run for Matt Pearson when he was head of A&R for Warner Jazz. Just fantastic albums. Kenny Garrett, Joshua Redman, Brad Meldau, some others that was Mathenia? No, Mathenia wasn't on there. But I mean, just some of the best 90s jazz records.
On a huge label.
Yeah, going right into the Verve as well, of course, which we've talked about before. We said Kenny Garrett on alto, soprano, Kenny Kirkland piano, Nat Reeves on bass, Jeff Tane Watts on drums. This received a Grammy nomination for Best Instrumental Jazz. Inexplicably did not win that. It better have been like Kind of Blue or Love Supreme, should have won it. And I don't think those came out that year. But Kenny Garrett produced this. Joe Furliff, fantastic engineer that I got a chance to work with once. Amazing engineer who did a lot of the Warner Jazz stuff, mastered by Greg Calby, who's fantastic as well. And then something really unique about this album that I think we've already mentioned, this is a true CD. We're out of the album period. I mean, I'm sure
they're not pressing vinyl at this point. We've tried because we do our listening session here where we want to listen to vinyl. Getting 90s vinyl it's very impossible.
Right. There might be some bootlegs out there or something. But this was very much 10 songs. The way the CD unfolds makes sense more as a CD than as an LP. There's no sort of demarcation point between side A and side B. It's a classic CD. This is once people were comfortable. It's getting into
This is another one where I know I've purchased at least 3 copies of this because it gets down in the car seat. You know what I mean? It's like
it's one that's fun to buy.
It gets lost on a plane somewhere.
Hit up Amazon for a little $7.99 man. It's all good.
Totally.
I was just looking for the length. I said classic CD length, 59 minutes, 43 seconds.
Yeah,
it's a 1 hour. Yeah. So it's not an album. It's a CD, and we're here for it, But it's all originals, all, as you've already alluded to, just incredible bangers, beautiful compositions.
Beautiful.
Kind of underrated compositions in a way, although some of them are really known and beloved.
But again, it's risen to the top. I think amongst players, at least here in St. Louis, man, everybody here knows these songs and plays these songs.
Yeah, I think that might be a little unique.
This
might be an epicenter for it. Maybe because of good work that you and I have done around here.
No, I'm not taking credit for that, but I've played these on multiple gigs, been given lead sheets with these tunes, like the 2 Down, 1 Across, and all of them pretty much.
Yeah.
So
send some of those over. I need those.
Yeah.
Shall we get in and listen to this bad boy?
Yeah, let's listen to track 1, speaking of 2 Down, 1 Across.
As we do here at the pod.
Killing opener.
Yeah. Statement. Hold on. Let me start it with the volume correct because I didn't do it justice.
I love a big rubato opener. Go ahead.
Oh, it's so great. And then the way and we're going to hear the way, let's listen to this all the way through. Okay. We can comment as we go. But the way this tune ends and the way it starts, take note. It's a statement. Kane is already in the driver's seat, I would say. Okay, that's a tone for the record. That's what you got coming. Welcome in. Much love, fam. Okay, can we just talk about some...
I thought we were listening the whole way through.
We're going to do it. But I want to find some excuses to go back. Underrated is the ability to play on one. Check out Kenny Kirk. It's kind of part of the tune, too. On the one. On the one. Here it comes. Not on the and a 4. Stop swinging so hard. You're making me uncomfortable. Like it's the 80s.
Nothing wrong with I mean, you got Kenny Kirkland and Payne on your record. You better burn out a little bit.
Yeah. Kenny Kirkland drops out. Little space. Comes back in.
Hey.
Matt Reeves, Mr. Consistency. Kenny Kirkland, he knows when to get out of there. Oh.
Hey!
segue. Chill down. Burn it out. Kenny's already grabbing some more. Second helping.
That's going to be a theme of this one.
Oh, bookend it. Bookend it, baby. Bookend it.
Do you like this album, Peter?
I love a good bookend. You only have one, the books fall over. But I mean, like the spirit that they started with. We still have 30 seconds left in the tune, by the way. Man, the way Tane and Garrett are playing, Kenny's just like staying out of the way.
Come on. What an opener.
Man. Oh, and then a lot of these tracks, the holdout, everything held out. I mean, this is such a balanced track. I'm joking about the bookends, but for real, it's so balanced. Yes, the playing is just killer, and it's got that hump. Tane he gets into all this crazy like interactive stuff, but somehow that backbeat is still there, you know? Yeah. Actually, if you hear like sorry. That's the next tune. But check out like when they're swinging. It's almost like you know what I'm saying? It's like
so good, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's such an underlying pulse and groove. Like the economics of the groove are just stunning, really, you know. And I've listened to this so much, and I never get tired of it. And I think that there is a direct, like a very interesting direct line from the John Coltrane. Okay, I'm going to put it out there. Hold up, I'm jumping to a hot take early. Sorry. There's a direct line from the John Coltrane Quartet to this iteration of the Kenny Garrett Quartet. And certain things, yes, Kenny Garrett, this comes later, 30 years later or whatever. But the way that they play, the way that they interact, the spirit with which, like that Elvin Jones, John Coltrane connection, you're already hearing that with Kenny Garrett. And am I out on a limb here? I don't know.
No,
I'm here for it.
You are on track.
You know what? I'm sucking it in. So I'm out of the limb, but I'm not breaking that limb because it really is there. The way they play because these epilogues, these second helpings, we're going to call them, at the end can become very self-indulgent in the wrong hands. When you're almost taking another solo and you've got they hit the last chord, they go back to the bookend, the rubato, and there's almost a minute of music at the end of a bunch of these tracks.
Yeah.
And like that, and this track's only 5 minutes and 16 seconds long. So like to do all that playing, it can kind of be like, all right, you already had your solo, but he lifts it. And Tane is there, and Kenny Kirkland's kind of staying out of the way at the right, and like they're all working together. And on different tracks, we're going to check that out. But to pull off the second helping, the epilogue.
Well, as we know, I mean, it's a very simple way to structure the song, but to make simple things sound good, to sound sophisticated, takes masters of what they're doing, and that's what this is. This is 4 masters taking relatively simple things, one chord.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Burning
that
out
structure of the rubato, the head, the solos, the head, the rubato. Simple structure, and then just like elevate it to something that's beyond what the sum of all those parts are.
Yeah,
and that's what masters do.
Kind of cocky coming out with a burnout 1/4 on the first track too. I like that.
Confident
and cocky. That's what we like.
All right. Are there any reviews or liner notes that we want to share before we get deep into some bangers here?
Well, I just picked out a little from this Washington Post. Jeffrey Himes or Gregory Himes? No, Gregory Himes would be the dancer.
Hines.
Okay, this is Himes. Jeffrey, I believe. Washington Post.
So not the same first name, not the same last name.
Close, sorry. Kenny Garrett, Songbook, Warner Brothers. This is just the first part. On his last two albums, 1995's Trilogy, that's a killing record too.
Yep.
And last year's Pursuance, the music of John Coltrane, maybe that's that direct connection. Kenny Garrett established himself as one of the more distinctive young talents in jazz. Sidebar here. It's kind of funny too, even that when he said young, that's why I had to look up their ages. And I was like, that's right, he was young. But he'd also, like, Kenny Garrett had been out, like, we really looked at him as one of the elder statesmen of the music. Like, when I first came up to New York, like, because he played with Miles, he was super young.
Yeah.
But, like, he was that connection that Miles, Branford and Wynton as well.
Yeah.
Branford played with Miles and Schofield, like those bands, those are some really interesting bands. But, like, Kenny Garrett's playing with Miles, I heard that live, was just amazing. Like, he got that connection too. So he was really established. So it's kind of funny just hearing distinctive young talents. But he was not like, yes, he was part of the Young Lions, but we always felt like he was above the Young Lions. You know what I mean? He was more like Branford, Wynton, like that, Jeff Watts. They were really the ones that set up the so-called Young Lions, I would say. Playing alto and soprano saxophone, Garrett displayed a thick vocal-like tone he could harden into a testifying shout or relax into an intimate whisper. He avoided the temptation of fast and flashy runs in favor of digging into the emotional core of the material. After showing his skill at interpreting jazz standards on the last two projects, Garrett emerges as an imposing composer on his new album, Songbook. He wrote all 10 of the varied but substantial pieces, and he recorded them with 2/5 of the original Wynton Marsalis quintet.
That's right.
Drummer Jeff Tain Watts and pianist Kenny Kirkland, as well as bassist Nat Reeves. Garrett has a very different approach than Marsalis, rooted more in the aggressive experimentation of the 60s rather than the refined classicism of the 50s. That's a little splitting hairs, but I think there's something to that. But he's just as exciting in his one way.
It's a very Washington Post thing.
Yes, and just as, kind of like, and just as deserving of prominence. So I think that's kind of that would be interesting. I couldn't get past that because I didn't pay to sign up for Washington Post. Shout out Washington Post.
Washington Post hanging on to the paywall model. Good for you.
I was able to grab that much though, for some reason.
For you.
Yeah, I think that there is something to that. It's always like the 50s classicism and the 60s. There was a lot of overlap and, it doesn't always fall right into there. But I think that there is something interesting. And then that connection with the great Wynton Marsalis original quintet with Branford and Kenny Kirkland and Tain.
The connection to John Coltrane and to that Marsalis quintet, I think, is important for this lineage for sure.
Yeah.
Like you can hear it and it's interesting that the two albums before was the music of John Coltrane, because that had to have affected what he was going to be doing in the years to come, and we can kind of hear it right here.
And it's so interesting him being primarily an alto saxophonist, and then but having that soprano connection. That's kind of the great unifier, I think, for a lot of these great players. Obviously Coltrane being a tenor saxophonist, but having the beautiful soprano as well. But it's always interesting when you get those. There's a lot of other influences you hear in there. Of course, Jackie McLean, Sonny Rollins, Bird. But Kenny Garrett's just, man, what a master.
Can I give you my banger?
Yes, we're on to the bangers. Are these number one bangers?
These are number one bangers. Okay. Mine is, it's easily the star of the show here. It's Sing a Song of Song.
Okay. You want to drive this or you want me to?
You got it. You can play it. It's also Kenny Kirkland's solo here is my banger of a solo. And
so maybe we'll go right. I think that's the first solo.
It's the first solo, but the tune itself is beautiful. It's completely singable. It's a very simple tune. Again, taking simple things but making them sophisticated is the sign of true masters. And they really do this on Sing a Song, a Song. And I think that's why it's the star of the show.
Yep. And I thought this was like the hit, which it kind of is, but there's another track that, we'll get to that in a second. But this is what I've always known as like for the GP, this is the one.
For sure.
And for those in the know.
There's that bass left-hand piano thing that we're going to hear on Joshua Redman's
about
Beyond.
4 years later.
Exactly.
Right? Man, the way that Tane, it's such an interesting way he enters with that. Before he does the groove, he's doing that other cymbal. It's so great. Let's luxuriate in that line. Kenny don't have to come in yet. Let it lay there.
And notice that it's root 5th 10th, root 5th 10th. The last time, root 5th root.
Yes, balance. Listen to the way Kenny Garrett and Kenny Kirkland are phrasing the melody together, but like just. Woo! Kenny Kirkland's starting to explain out a little bit of the harmony, a little bit more. And you know, Nat Reeves could play that bass line over and over again so well, but he never gets automated or stuck in it. It's just killing.
Little move. And this is the only time this bridge happens.
Right.
Just here.
They don't
That's
solo
it.
over it. And it's weird. It goes from E major to B major. Back to E. The way he bends up the notes.
We were kind of going over what each of these musicians were using to play over. Kenny Kirkland using a lot of that, like an A melodic minor ascending on the E, starting on E.
Yeah.
And then like a C Lydian. I think like a D mix Lydian.
Yeah.
But Kenny Garrett is using more of that. We'll hear more like F naturals than F sharps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kirkland's leaning more into that C natural.
Yeah. I love this solo. This is my banger of the solo because it's Kenny Kirkland, I think, at his most melodic. That is, he's really playing the tune. Like, he's capturing the spirit of the tune. All of these little themes that he's developing are so gorgeous.
Yeah. And it's a very much like an exploratory solo.
It's a singable, exploratory solo.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more flashy solos from him on this album, but this is, I think, the most, for me, like, in line musically with what's going on. That, I don't know, it hits me every time.
Yeah.
Can he use that E, like, harmonic major?
Yeah. So he's already
F natural there, like a melodic or A harmonic minor.
But you know, it's a good thing to think about, like that it's not just like, well, what is the chord? Like, what is the E major chord?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because it's not clearly defined, it can be different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're listening to each other.
Well, and there's a tension that can happen. If Kenny Kirkland is playing something with a natural 9, and Kenny Garrett plays that F natural, that's not a wrong note or wrong. It's not wrong.
Right.
Like, that tension is part of what makes this song this song. We talked about that when Aaron Parks was here in our studio doing his amazing course Meditations on Jazz Piano. He talks about, like, you know, when you're comping for someone and they take it out, you don't always have to take it out. In fact, they probably want that tension of them being outside of the changes and you being inside of the changes. So the fact that this E is sort of negotiable, right? Yeah. What kind of E this is part of the charm of the tune.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a good thing when you're writing, like if you want to get into this, the possibility of to be able to get into some kind of playing like this, or wouldn't we all, is that maybe you don't put like E major, you know, with a flat 13 and a major 7, like exactly the way you're going to play. It's E. It's E, you know.
It's like literally a root of E, yeah.
Like what fits with that bass line? Because that's happening every time, right? Or
there's going to be a major third and an E, and that's about all we know.
Exactly.
Sometimes you hear that. Sometimes you hear the D sharp.
Yep.
Sometimes you hear like an A melodic minor ascending starting on E. Sometimes you hear that F natural.
Yep.
Sometimes Kenny Garrett is about to play something like that, which is, I think that scale does have a name, but I forget what it is. But it's that. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Such great stuff. All right. Well, you done good on those.
Thank you.
So that was your banger track.
What's your banger track?
Solo. Okay. So my banger track is this I think was, of all the albums we've done so far, was the hardest for me to choose.
There's so many bangers.
Yeah, it was so many bangers.
There's 10 tracks. There's like 8 bangers.
Oh, well, wait, which are the two words?
I'm not going to say which ones I don't like.
The anti-bangers.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
I'm going with Brother.
I like 8 tracks on this 10-track album.
I'm going with Brother Hubbard.
Great track.
And the solo is actually from this as well, conveniently, for my banger solo, which is Kenny Garrett's solos. Actually, both of his solos. We're going to jump between those.
Second helping Garrett over here. Listen to those drums, too.
I'm happy already. That was his, what was that drum? Sonars. That's a great bass sound. Shout out Furla. And the choice to not have it with piano, you know, that's interesting. Woo! It's just a simple tune, beautiful.
Has Brother Hubbard ever been sampled? Surely it's been sampled before.
Could be, yeah. Tane hitting that and a 4 with authority. Animal. Woo! Go ahead, Ken. I love bridges like that. I do think they might push the snubometer down, though. He likes the sound.
This might be a burner, the burner of a solo for sure.
Ooh, open it up. Changes are very, very simple and basic. Woo! Saxophone. So this bridge Kenny Cargan's solo is killing too. But that solo, like the way he ends it, the whole thing, and like if you saw a transcription of this or played it, you'd be like, wow, that is so easy. And why does it not sound as good as the way Kenny Garrett's doing it? There's so much stylization to how he plays. Like so much of it is just, blues and pentatonic stuff, but then, sliding up in really interesting ways up to that major seventh and stuff, playing around with that. Like very like developmental. And then because the bridge is like so simple, 4/5, to 1. I think we're gonna have a problem with the snobometer, but when we get there, we'll talk about it.
We are gonna have a problem with a snobometer, but we'll see.
But as good as you know what? I have a groove snobometer that's going off the charts on this bad boy. Let's put that out there.
Okay.
So as great as that solo is, I'm gonna take, because it's in the same tune, Kenny Garrett, as he does a lot on this record, comes back for seconds. He does a little epilogue. He does a little second solo. He does a little, this is my album, this is my party, and I can play when I want to. And I think this solo is actually my banger solo. That was leading up to it was great. So let's coming out of the melody here, right? Woo! A little moo. Kenny Cargan sets him up nicely. We got 2 minutes left in the tune. They're stuck in it. They're stuck in it. Lighter up. Get your lighter up.
So good, man. What about Spotify bangers? I know we've got a good Spotify bangers story here too, because this is one I had no idea about until this morning when we got here.
Yeah, I mean, I would have assumed it was Sing a Song of Song, which is 2.2 million plays, which is quite a bit. But before It's Time to Say Goodbye, which was a finalist for my banger track.
It's a great track.
Yeah.
But 23 million.
23 million.
Out of nowhere. It must have been on some kind of big playlist or something.
I thought you were doing research on that over there.
No, I got something else for Apex Mountain later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to play a little bit of this because this is a stunning tune. For some reason, I always thought this was Kenny Kirkland's composition. And I was corrected on that if my information is correct, but it's very simple. Before It's Time to Say Goodbye. Even with a little bit of tuning issues, I'm okay with that.
It's a beautiful tune, though.
Yeah, so that's Spotify banger.
Keep it going.
Okay, I got you. Oh, that brush work. Ah. Woo!
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here about if it was on any kind of huge playlist or anything. It might just be because it's such a beautiful tune, but it got all the attention on the Spotify, which is crazy.
We don't know what
Sing a
the
Song a Song has
doing.
2.2 million, and this has 23 million. And every other track is in the hundreds of thousands. Most of them are like 300,000, 180,000.
Not enough. Come on, folks.
Yeah, but that's just very interesting that's the one that has so many more listens. Spotify banger. It's not that it's not deserving, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, if anybody knows, please, even if you're listening to this on the pod or watching, go to the YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel, a bespoke YouTube channel called You'll Hear It.
All right.
Go there and leave in the comments, what's up with that? What's up? Remember the frogs? Sorry, squirrel. The frogs. What's up? What's up?
Those weren't frogs.
Those were frogs, sir.
No, those
Budweiser frogs.
Those frogs were Bud. Why? Sir, what's up? We're dudes on the phone. Peter.
You're right. I conflated those stories.
I just want everybody to know, as good of a jazz pianist as Peter is, he's terrible at pop culture.
No, I knew both. I just conflated them.
His thing.
I love
What's up? Like the frogs.
But you knew what I was talking about.
What's up? Like Spuds MacKenzie. What's up?
Spuds MacKenzie.
Wow. I thought you knew.
They were both Budweiser commercials, right?
I thought you knew about the 90s. So I guess they were actually, I don't think they were from the same Super Bowl. They might have been from Super Bowls back to back. The What's Up and the Budweiser Frogs, but they were definitely in
You know what? It's going to be egg on your face if it turns out one of those occurred and somebody puts it in the comments in 1997 when this very album Songbook came out. Then who's the cultural prognosticator?
I don't know what prognosticator.
I don't know either. It sounded cool though.
Peter, let's do some categories, man.
Okay.
Speaking of frogs, let's do over underdog.
Okay. All right. This is when we talk about things that might be overrated, might be underrated. The What's Up was kind of underrated. It was overrated at first, and then it became. I'm bringing it back. Okay.
So you and Michael Scott are bringing it back.
That's right. Okay. This whole album is underrated.
Okay.
Apparently, except for. Before It's Time to Say Goodbye, which seems to be overrated in relation to the others. No, I think this album, although it's always interesting to get, because to me, it's not talked about enough or a lot, but maybe it's the circles I'm running in. I hear a lot of influences of this album on the years. So obviously people are listening to this and paying attention to it. Musicians know about this album, right? Mm-hmm. But I really think that this is a strong contender for, and we'll talk about this when we get to the Apex Mountain, but for best jazz album of the 90s.
Well, let's talk about it now. Let's go through it here. So jazz albums of the 90s, what do we got? We've got the people who are sort of leading the charge. The Marsalises are still leading the charge, especially Branford is putting out some amazing
Crazy
albums.
People music, I believe, was 90s. That's a great record.
Yeah.
With some of these same musicians on it, in fact.
But then you have the new generation coming along.
Yes.
You got your Roy Hargroves, your Christian McBrides, your Brad Meldows, your Joshua Redmonds, your Kenny Garretts.
Yep.
And they're all putting out albums. You got your Benny Greens coming out. Those Blue Note Benny Green albums with Christian McBride and Carl Allen are not to be slept on.
You got your Pat Metheny, who's a little older, but
Pat Metheny,
he's putting out some of his best records.
He's putting out some of his.
You've got your Kenny. You got your Keith Jarrett. Ever heard of him? We can't even talk about him without getting blocked on this, though. We can't play his music.
ECM's going to block us just for mentioning his name.
Some of the great.
There are some really good 90s, trio 90s records from Keith Jarrett. Yeah. There's some Herbie stuff. There's the new standard is this same year, I believe, 97 or 98 maybe.
Right. You're right.
So that's a contender. Herbie's always a contender.
So maybe this album isn't underrated.
There's also some great vocal albums coming out. You got a lot of Cassandra Wilson that sounds really good. You got Jackie Tarrason making Blue Note albums.
You got some good Diane Reeves records.
And some great Diane Reeves records. There's a lot of good music happening in the 90s. But I would say
Nicholas Payton.
Come on, you can just keep them coming, man. There's some good stuff.
The 90s.
Yeah.
Back when the Cats were swinging.
I believe I would put this up there with any of them. So I think as far as like how impactful this has become, maybe not at the time, but certainly since, I would say Songbook is as impactful as any, except for maybe you could say that those Brad Mehldau Art of the Trio albums were maybe a little more influential totally on the entire landscape.
Yeah.
You know, and certainly like they were super popular and sort of like was born this whole like subgenre,
right?
You know, shoegaze, kind of vibe.
Oh, and we forgot about
shoegaze.
We forgot about Shirley Horn, Joe Henderson, all that classic.
Joe Henderson. I mean,
stuff.
there's a lot of classic
90s
recordings.
Okay, I'm gonna pull back on that one. My bad. But okay, I'm gonna tell you an underdog on this record. Jeff Watts' groove.
Before you pull back on that, I just want to say there's still a case to be made that this might be the best jazz album of the 90s. I think this is in the top 5 at least.
You know what I'm going to put out there?
What?
I don't know about that, although I agree. Absolutely, it's in the discussion.
It's so listenable. I think crazy listenable.
Yes, listenable from beginning to end. I think this is the finest jazz album. It doesn't get any finer than this.
I think it's as listenable as one of those Joshua Redman mid-90s albums, but the playing might be just a little more intense, a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean,
how it all pans out.
This is okay. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait till we get to Apex Mountain. I got a new one too for that. But just I want to throw in there Tane's ability to groove because he's such a technician. He's so interactive. He can play over the bar line. He's got the 5 rhythms.
You're saying that's underrated, underdog.
No, his just ability to groove. Like when he just starts out grooving.
That's the underdog.
That's the underdog. Yeah. Like he's not given enough credit. Like for he's
a bomb dropper.
He's a bomb dropper, but he can do that while keeping that back. And then he's got this weird way of combining. I think he's the finest like swing drummer, quote unquote, that has that undercurrent of a backbeat.
Does he have his flurry game together?
Flurry? Nah, he's not really a flurrier. Yeah. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like and then Tane, is he the most influential drummer of his generation? I think so, you know?
I think so.
Like once you get past Elvin and Tony, you get into...
We're going to talk more about Tane on Apex Mountain because I think there's a discussion about this era of Tane that we should have too.
And I do think also one other underdog, or maybe it's an overdog, is Kenny Garrett's, and really this whole quartet's mastery of the epilogue.
You're saying he plays more after he's done. Is what you're saying. You're taking a second helping.
But when we heard that second, I mean, that in the wrong hands, that becomes such a self-indulgent. Like I remember my dad used to be like, like he'd come to different shows or just be talking about jazz. He's like, man, I mean, my dad loves jazz and like he's a musician and he's not a jazz musician, but he knows a lot about it. Yeah. But he's like, man, the one thing that's always that irks him about especially when he come to hear me play, he's like, when you guys hit the last chord, just let it sit there. Like you're doing all this step up, boo boo, scooby doo doo bow, boo doo.
Well, yeah, definitely don't do that.
No, he just says there's a lot happening. But this is an example.
Are you going to arpeggiate up every last chord?
Yeah. But I think that in this, this is beyond that. This is over a minute sometimes of just extra badassery.
Yeah, but this is, again, in the lineage of the John Coltrane Quartet.
Yes.
Where this rubato or even just giving space at the end and beginning of songs is part of the sound.
Yeah.
It's part of the composition.
It really is like an epilogue. You know, you've read a book where the epilogue is just I want to thank Harry and Susie and my wife or whatever, or just sort of an add-on, but the real book finishes and you can or can't read it. Yeah. But then there's some books, I can't think of one now, but I've definitely read some that the epilogue is so interesting and takes you to another place. You know, it's a real, and that's what happens on this record. And I think they're not giving enough credit for that being part, and it kind of continues things to the next tune in a really interesting way. This is a great album to listen to from beginning to end. It's 10 tunes. There's no weak moments. It's super well balanced and I love it. Hot take.
All right, let's do some Apex Mountains, Peter.
Okay. Can I start it off?
Start it off.
Kenny Kirkland. I'm going to say this is his Apex Mountain.
You think that this record specifically is his Apex Mountain?
Yes. If someone were to say, wow, I've never heard of this guy, Kenny Kirkland, what should I listen to? I would say, well, if you want to hear the best he's ever sounded, you could do worse than this record.
I don't know. I'm gonna say the whole period between 85 and
to the end
90 was maybe his Apex Mountain.
A little falling off.
That 5-year period for him might have been. I mean, he's making all these albums with Branford.
Great stuff.
Stuff
no
with
doubt.
Wynton, Black Codes is 85. He's making all that stuff with Sting, although he does that into 96.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Black Codes. I love that record. I love Kenny's playing on it. One of the most influential records for me personally and for a number of people.
Playing with Dizzy Gillespie, Elton Jones.
That's a great record on GRP.
Yeah.
That's a killing record. But I'm saying, like, I think this is the finest Kenny, like, you get the full breadth. Now, I am conflating a little bit with live performances I heard with this band. I just feel like it was the intersection of like the perfect band and like playing. I mean, he was great. I loved him with Branford. Crazy People music. That would be the only other thing.
I mean, I would put that whole run with Branford as his apex.
We're talking about it for an album.
For one album?
That's what we're doing here today, buddy.
I don't know.
I think this is his finest playing on any album.
You don't think Crazy People music?
I mean, it's great. I love that record.
All right.
But I just think Kenny goes to I think there's more width to his playing. There's more depth. There's not more depth. There's always a lot of...
I think it could be 90 and 91, actually. Crazy People music, Mo Better Blues, into his only solo album.
Yeah.
Kenny Kirkland on
And
GRP.
that's a great record, but I think that his playing on this is... I mean, that's more like he's getting into more different kinds of things, and it's his record.
Okay.
So that's hard to compare.
Okay.
But I'm saying, like, if I had to go to the desert island with one record with Kenny Kirkland on it, it would be this.
Do you think this is Kenny Garrett's Apex Mountain?
So that's harder to say because I mean, I think that his what's the record? The Ancestors, his last record that came out like a year ago or whatever, is amazing.
But don't you think this is his legacy album?
This is probably, but I mean, I don't think that there's anything. I mean,
your legacy is your entire career and your being in the world. But
his playing with Miles when he was super young.
I know. But I think this is, again, he created a 10 album standards.
It's
like modern standards.
Yeah, it's probably Kenny Garrett's. But Trilogy, which was right before this, or 2 records before this, is an incredible.
I mean,
record.
He's made incredible records, but I don't know. This might be. There's a case to be made. Nat Reeves,
Apex Mountain. I think.
I think you're right about
he's
that.
had an amazing educational career as a teacher and head of the program there at the Hart School of Music. But has always played. He's been playing with Sarah Hanahan, friend of the pod, friend of ours here.
Yeah.
Where she came up under him, and I mean, he's had his fingerprint on some of the great young players. But I think recording wise, yeah,
I agree. All right, let's talk about Jeff Tain Watts. This is a complicated one because talk about just like, is he just apexing his whole career? Like, he hasn't had from what I can see, too many artistic or commercial valleys. No. When you look at his discography, it's pretty unbelievable once he gets going. I think there's a couple of eras. I mean, it's hard. He got a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2017. You know what I mean? Like, wow. So he's like doing stuff Jeff Watts into his 50s and 60s. He's still
brings his A game. Like he comes at. I played with him some, and actually the first time I played with him, I was 15 years old, and he helped me out a lot. I was sitting in, and I didn't know what I was doing, and he looked at me and like was playing and giving that groove and welcomed me in, and like kind of a pivotal moment for me. 15, 16.
I think you can make some cases 16. Similar to Kenny Kirkland that it could be like sort of an apex, maybe not album, but like period.
Yeah.
Could be that mid 80s, 85. Yeah. I mean, 85 through 87, they won with Wynton 3 Grammys in a row.
Yeah, but the Grammys are full of shit. We know that.
And then he won with Branford in 92. But that,
which record?
That mid 90s. That's for I Heard You Twice the First Time.
That's a great record.
Yeah, I think they were nominated for Crazy People Music and Requiem and Contemporary Jazz.
Oh, Requiem.
They won for Contemporary Jazz and Eternal. So I think you could make a case. However, I'm going to make it actually, and I wasn't on board with this at first, but since like I've kind of looked here, listen to the run Tain goes on between 95 and 2000. You ready for this?
Yes.
Between 95 and 2000. So first of all, his own stuff.
Yeah.
The only album he makes between 95 and 2000 under his own name is Citizen Tain.
Yeah.
Which might be his most influential album as a leader.
Yeah.
Kenny Kirkland is on that as well. Incredible.
Yeah.
But in that sort of mid 90s, he makes 2 albums with Michael Brecker. 2 Blocks from the Edge, which is incredible. Time is of the essence on Verb, which is incredible.
Yeah.
He makes 2 albums with Joey Calderazzo, Simply Music, and Joey Calderazzo, self-titled on Columbia. He makes 2 albums with Kenny Garrett, Songbook and Simply Said, both incredible.
Yeah.
He makes a ton of more stuff, but makes Live in New York with Stanley Jordan. He makes The Maze with Kakowski. He makes Beauty Burning with Joe Locke. He makes, of course, a ton of music always with Branford, but including the Dark Keys Requiem, contemporary jazz, which he won a Grammy for.
Dark Keys. That could be Apex Mountain, Jeff Tain Watts.
That's what I'm saying.
Or Bloomington. That was earlier.
This whole run here from 95 to 2000, he makes Art Forum with Greg Osby. He makes 2 albums with Danilo Perez, which are probably Danilo Perez's like most impactful albums, honestly.
And he's on the Tonight Show every night that was a little earlier.
It was a little earlier, but dude, and there's more I'm leaving out here, including stuff with like Billy Childs. And I mean, there's like, it's a hell of a run.
Yeah, he's on a lot of records. He's on really great people because he's really good at
But I'm saying, like,
duh.
That period,
people call him because they like him.
Might be that whole period might be this like huge career artistic. I mean, I hope he took a rest at some point, like 2000, because it's like he's working all the time, obviously. I mean, great for all of us, but it's really incredible when you go through his discography at that specifically. I mean, it's nonstop. Yeah. But specifically at that time, it's kind of nuts.
I mean, we were all riding that wave, but he was really like, that was just a great period for making jazz albums. Like the major labels were still doing it, Verve, Warner Brothers, all that. It did fall off after when the
CD era died.
Yeah.
Is this Apex Mountain for 90s jazz? We talked about it. Maybe, maybe not.
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes, too.
I'm going to say
is this an Apex Mountain for all originals album? I'm going to say there's
Love Supreme.
In the mix.
That's right. Well, you said it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what maybe pushes it up for the 90s albums for me.
I mean, Kinda Blue is an all originals album.
Yeah, but it's not all originals from one person.
I know, but it's still.
Kind of, it is. It is. That's true. But this is like, these are all... Yeah. Okay. So we're going to say no.
Is it Apex Mountain for singable songs that are also incredibly meaty to improvise over, right? So I think the magic trick that Kenny Garrett pulls here is you can sing and whistle and remember every melody. They're all beautiful. Yeah, it's this incredible collection of songs, and it's called Songbook, I think, for a reason.
Yeah.
That they then thrash over in this beautiful way. And that is such a rare thing. Usually it's like, if it's a tune that's
the song.
Yeah, if it's like a modern tune that's like great to improvise over, it's got all these hits and crazy shit happening. But this is like real songs that then they just like melt your face with.
Yeah.
And that is incredible. Might be the Apex Mountain for that.
Yeah, even the burnout, the 2 down and 1 across, is like,
it's totally singable. So great. Yeah. We played the ballad. I mean, like this could be Apex Mountain for like playable and singable, like playable and listenable.
Yeah, listenable and what about? I got one more for you.
Okay.
Apex Mountain for a new category.
Okay.
The epilogue.
It might be.
It
could be the Apex Mountain. It could be the height of the epilogue. Yeah.
I mean, there is a certain gentleman named John Coltrane who died in 1967.
Well,
that we would want to throw into that.
Yeah, and don't forget there are a lot of live Miles recordings. Lots of epilogues happening. So
yeah. But this is this is in the conversation for sure.
Brad Meldau stuff too.
Yeah. Oh, Keith Jarrett.
Keith.
The vamp. That's more. That's different though.
I think Keith might be the epilogue king.
Yeah, but that's beyond a second helping. That's like going to a whole nother restaurant.
It is kind
that's
of
like a second meal.
It is kind of like you eating
that's what a second helping.
Yeah, you're eating the leftover chicken in the fridge when you get home for sure. Okay, so how about some awards? The John Coltrane Theft Award.
Okay, refresh me on that and our dear listeners.
So who stole this record? I'm gonna say Kenny Garrett with his second solos. Kenny Garrett stole his own record by coming back with those epilogues.
Well, how do you steal your own record?
Ask KG. He did it.
Lou Donaldson had a thing when they first were building a Starbucks in Harlem on 125th Street. This is like this might have been the 80s even, or in the early 90s, when they're like gentrifying and like rebuilding or whatever the hell was going on, 125th Street. And there's a bunch of musicians around talking, and Lou Donaldson is there, and they're like, man, this is horrible. Like, they're bringing Starbucks into this historic African-American neighborhood. It's going to be gentrified. It's going to be commercialized, with corny Starbucks. And at the grand opening, they're having Kenny, of all people, they're having Kenny G, not Kenny Garrett, the other Kenny G, who we listened to.
Of course, he was a prime investor.
Play at the thing. And Lou Donaldson told him, was like, y'all so stupid. Kenny G owned That's his company. He owned the joint. How you gonna kick a man out of the? He owned the joint.
Yes.
That was his retort to them, which I thought was good. So yes, Kenny Garrett owns the joint. How are you gonna kick a man out?
What about the Cecil Taylor Taking It Out award, Peter?
I mean, I think Tane kind of takes it out. But Kenny Garrett, I mean, I would say Tane actually. Who you got for that?
Yeah, I'll say Tane as well.
Yeah.
I initially was going to say Kenny Garrett, but I think Tane takes it out.
Yeah.
What about the Oscar Peterson Overplaying Award?
Well,
you can make a
Kenny
case.
Garrett
Kenny Garrett for the second helpings. You could also make a Tane case.
I'd say it would be Tane because he's in the spirit of Oscar Peterson. He's really playing on top of a lot of
He's playing
solos,
a lot,
but it's so
effective.
perfect. And
it's
like
so Oscar.
It's not perfect. It's effective.
It's not a negative overplaying. It is a
yeah.
Okay, finally the MVP. Who won the album, Peter?
I mean, I'm going to go with an underdog and say Nat Reeves won the record.
I agree.
Strangely enough, I think he's only got like 1 or 2 solos on it.
But he holds it down.
He holds it down.
I totally concur.
Yes.
With that.
Concurrence
assessment.
Adhered to.
All right, who are our first call subs? If Kenny Kirkland can't make the piano seat for this session, who are you calling first? I'll tell you who I'm calling first. He's sitting right across from me.
No, you
it's
would
Peter
not
Martin. I would call you first at this time. Are you kidding me, dude? You would slay this.
I could make the gig because I love this band and this music, and I listen to it.
You would slay this one.
But no, but
you would be the right call.
No, I would not be the right call. Not if you could call anybody. I'd say Joey Calderazzo.
Joey Calderazzo would be good too.
Would be because like his extensive understanding, extensive and nuanced influence and understanding. We're all influenced by Kenny Kirkland, but Calderazzo takes it to another level.
I think you can make a case.
And he played with Tane and with Branford. Yeah.
You could also make a case for Gonzalo and Danilo and Brad Meldau.
Gonzalo would be a noteworthy choice because there'd be a lot of notes being played.
A lot of notes, but I think it would fit.
Right.
Saxophone. If the man himself, Kenny Garrett, couldn't make it.
Well, if we're thinking alto, Steve Wilson comes to mind.
That comes to mind.
Because he would do it his own thing, but like he could nail all this stuff.
What about the other Kenny G? Would you call Kenny?
Well, he has the name,
Gorlick?
so you could be like Kenny on saxophone, Kenny G instead of Kenny Garrett. It'd be weird. Branford too.
Branford is obvious because it's half his band.
Josh Redmond could have jumped in there.
I don't know about that one actually. Okay. I don't know if that would have been a good fit.
He was playing a little alto around this period too.
Yeah, but I just don't know if that just would have been a great fit for this sound.
Josh Redmond canceled off this substitution.
We've got some stalwarts that we would usually say.
For the rhythm section.
Herbie Ron Hutch.
Herbie Ron Hutch. I love
Herbie Ron Hutch could be on
Tony?
anything.
Herbie Ron Tony. Well, he wasn't around then.
Herbie Ron Hutch could be on about any record,
That's
honestly.
True. Hutch is so bad, he moved into a previous generation legendary rhythm section.
I've never heard Hutch play on any record where he didn't fit in seamlessly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never heard a record Hutch has played on. Gregory Hutchinson is who we're talking about. Open studio artist, friend of the pod. I've never heard him play on anything where he didn't meet the music where it is and still be himself. I think that's an incredible feat.
And Hutch would be able to come in like a last minute sub. He could be listening to this album, even if he hadn't heard this band. He would listen to the album for a couple hours, like on it while he's flying to the city, and would learn all these tunes.
Of course,
like he's got that ability and that kind of
he would nail
that grit.
He would nail it. Bass McBride. It was obviously the man.
It wouldn't be a problem.
I think CT Chris Thomas.
Doing his thing at this time.
Would be great. Ruben Rogers.
It would be a young Ruben Rogers, but he would be ready to go.
And I think at this time, too, you'd have to put Larry Grenadier in there as well.
Yes. A little grenadine syrup in there.
And then drums. You got Tony Williams as a sub. And then Brian Blade.
Brian Blade could jump in there.
I think those are all good.
Yeah.
All good choices. All right. Bespoke genre. Peter, what do you got?
Okay. I'm going with, and maybe you could even tell from my reaction as we were listening, this is Stank Face Jazz.
Stank Face Jazz.
I
like that. That's
because
a good genre.
You can get stuck in that stank. I mean, it's Tane. It's everybody. It's Kenny Garrett. What am I talking about? It's Kenny Kirkland. It's Nat Reeves. But it's just like, there's so much, even on like the ballads, it's just such, to me, you know what it is? I think some people, I'm still concerned about the Snobometer, and I'm interested.
We'll see how it goes.
Because I feel like this is one of those records, when I tell people how much I love it, they're like, oh yeah, you would love this record. You know, like a little bit of a gaslighting or condescension.
We'll see.
And I think it's because it's so obviously great to me, but it's also like, it's not a cryptic record. You know what I mean? It's just like laying it out there, just like the grooves and it's not like, oh, let me listen to it. It's imminently and eminently enjoyable, I think.
It's imminently and eminently?
Yes, because I can't remember which is the one I want to use. So I'm going to say it's both, you know. What do you got for?
I got two. I got the first one, Unk Jazz.
Unk Jazz.
Unk Jazz.
Like UNC, like Tar Heels?
Like your Unk.
ACCs
This is the kind of jazz your Unk is
Chapel Hill?
Old Unk really loves
Unk.
this jazz.
Uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at UNC.
And then I've got my other one is Pleather Blazer Burner Jazz. You know how that looks. A nice pleather 90s pleather blazer.
Right. A little earlier than this, though, perhaps.
Pleather blazer burner jazz. It's hard to say, but it is an important genre in the
pleather blazer burner jazz. I like it.
And Unk Jazz. Unk
Jazz.
Accoutrements. All right. The cover.
Let's look at the cover.
It's fine.
It's a 90s cover. It's a mid 90s cover, right?
It's a good shot.
I think Brooklyn. Is Brooklyn in the house, or is that Lower East Side? What's happening there?
I think the jumbled letters. If it were just that shot,
what do the letters say?
I think it's supposed to say like
jazz.
It's
jazzy.
Kenny
Garrett,
maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, that is a little weird now that I think of it. Or maybe it's going to be something obvious that people in the comments are going to be like, "You idiot! It's music notes."
No, yeah, but it's just it would be. I think. Yeah, it's fine.
Kenny Garrett's pants and wait, that's all. I can tell you that's real leather, but that's almost a pleather blazer situation there.
He's got the drip going for
his
sure.
Hat, his kufi. Is that called a kufi? Kufi. Yeah, I mean that was
shoes
Kenny
are
Garrett.
On point.
Yeah.
Everything looks good.
Yeah.
Hot takes, Peter. My rant for this, hot take and / rant. My rant for this is what happened to singable melodies? Why can't we have both? Why can't we have singable melodies and slaying solos?
He's angry.
I'm wondering because I like both.
Are you asking for a friend?
I'm asking for me. All right.
Okay, that was a rant. I got a hot take.
Okay.
2 days in the studio with the right quartet, the right engineer can produce a stellar and timeless jazz album.
That's a hot take. Yeah. That's all you need.
Yeah. If they had pushed this into one, I don't think you would have gotten I kind of know how these sort of sessions went down around that time.
Yeah.
And 3, 4, you don't really need, although that occasionally would happen. Not when you're at this level. And they were a working group at around this time. But I mean, 2 days, that's nicely between. It's not luxurious, but it's not it's not a 1 day crisscross session.
Yeah.
Shout out Crisscross. Some great records, but you're not going to make this in 1 day, I don't think.
That's true.
Now I'm going to find out they recorded everything on the first day and they just chilled the second.
The snobometer, I have a 7. I think it's a little too snobby for Aunt Linda, but I think it's not quite snobby enough for Ethan Iverson.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what a snob would say about this one.
Yeah, I think it's so right down the middle in a little bit of a cryptic way.
Yeah.
To me, after you listen to us and understand this record, you realize how direct of a record it is.
You know who transcends snob and not snob is Kenny Kirkland. He always. I've never met
the snob.
I've never met any musician who I really respect them and think they're really good at what they do.
Yeah.
Who don't love Kenny Kirkland, even if they don't play like him.
Yes.
There's a deep amount of respect, and he's on Sting records and Mo Better Blues.
He's the ultimate anti-snob.
Yeah.
But I mean, he is very much a pianist.
Yeah,
he's the one that I think from this generation that everybody, again, even if it's not their number one, I mean, he's almost to that level of a Keith Jarrett, if not there, in terms of
It's true in that regard. He's almost
for different reasons, but Herbie. I
hear what you're saying.
Herbie's is another level. I think just because he's been around.
Herbie's his own
long.
category almost. Yeah.
But I have 5 for the snobometer because
right in the middle.
Yeah, because I think it is so singable. It is so accessible. This is a very accessible record.
I agree
in terms of how it sounds and everything. And I think snobs
it
don't
burns
like that.
hard though. It does burn hard. That turns off Aunt Linda. She doesn't like that.
Okay, I got you there. And Ethan Iverson probably loves this record. So there's that.
I don't know.
The snobometer is weird.
I don't know. The snobometer.
Okay, we got to get Ethan Iverson into the comments because we know that he listens to the pod.
Well, we don't know that. We know
he's a great writer. No, we did.
We know that, but we don't know if he listens at all. But
yeah, I'm going to reach out. But let us know, and then this will be an invitation to Ethan to get in the comments himself, whether or not you think Ethan Iverson would love this record or not. Because we don't know. You feel like you know Aunt Linda better than you know Ethan Iverson.
Well, it's because
you're related.
I've known her my whole life.
All right, here is the apex mountain of, going to get a little meta, the apex mountain of our rating system. What are we calling this? A framework? An album evaluation framework?
Yeah. Our categories. Our categories.
So this is the apex mountain. This is the pièce de résistance.
Okay.
Is Songbook by Kenny Garrett.
Yeah.
By Kenneth Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that's his name.
Nope.
Not sure. Is Songbook better than K.O.B. Kind of Blue by Miles Dewey Davis?
No.
Okay. Can you ask me the same question, please?
Is Songbook better than Kind of Blue?
Yes.
Okay. Well, till next time.
You'll hear it.